And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, the Iowa caucuses are just 12 days away, and the rivalry between GOP frontrunners Donald Trump and Senator Ted Cruz is intensifying. Now, according to the latest Real Clear Politics average, the two candidates are neck and neck in the Hawkeye State. Donald Trump in first with 28.8% of the vote. Senator Ted Cruz right behind at 26.6%. Here with reaction, 2016 Republican presidential candidate, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, good to see you again. Welcome back.
Sean, great to be with you.
I got to tell you, this has really become a slugfest in the minds. I have friends that support you. I have friends that support Trump. It's palpable, and there's almost like an anger that's building between the two camps. From your perspective, how do you see this competition?
Well, listen, I agree that Donald seems to be getting very angry. I mean, he's rattled and he's tossing out a lot of insults. I have no intention of responding in kind. I don't intend to insult him. In fact, I like Donald. I respect him. And I'm not interested in getting into a mudslinging fight. So if he wants to do that, that's his choice. But I won't be doing it. What I will be doing is keeping the race focused on issues and substance. I think that's what the voters expect. I think that's what they deserve. And right now, the men and women of this country are trying to make the determination who is best prepared to be commander-in-chief, and who can we trust to be a consistent conservative. We're tired of getting burned. Who can we trust to actually deliver on and do what they say they'll do?
Do you now see this as a two-man race? I mean, I'm looking at polls. Obviously very tight in Iowa. It's pretty much a fight for second place, according to the polls in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. You're in second place in South Carolina, second place in Florida, second place in Georgia, first place in Utah in a poll that came out this week.
Yeah.
Is it a two-man race in your mind?
You know, Sean, I think it very much is becoming a two-man race between me and Donald. And you know, one of the really strong signs of that is you're seeing the Washington establishment dumping their candidates. So, for example, a lot of the establishment had been behind Marco Rubio. That they've decided now he doesn't have a path to victory. They're moving to Donald Trump, and we're seeing that more and more. And, you know, it's kind of curious. Donald is publicly bragging about how all the big establishment players are getting behind him, and his criticism of me is he said I went to Washington and actually stood up and fought in Washington, and Donald has said, well, the problem he has with me is that I won't go along to get along in Washington. I won't cut deals, and Donald has promised he'll go to Washington, he'll cut deals, he'll go along to get along. Now I got to tell you, Sean, you know the conservatives across this country. I don't think the problem with Washington is that we haven't had enough Republicans willing to cut deals with the Democrats. The problem is Republican leadership cuts deals every day with the Democrats, like this horrible omnibus bill that funded $1 trillion, funded all of Obama's big government priorities, and the establishment seems to have made a determination. Donald Trump's a guy they can make a deal with who will continue the cronyism and corporate welfare and bailouts for big banks, and I think that we're seeing conservatives getting behind us, and we're seeing the Washington establishment getting behind Donald Trump, interestingly enough.
It's interesting you reveal it that way, because I've always thought the establishment despised both of you, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm a proud insurgent supporter, if you will, in this election, because like you, I feel that Washington Republicans have failed us. When you say you're going to fight, for example, in 2010 the promise was repeal, replace Obamacare. They wouldn't use the power of the purse. 2014 it was stop executive amnesty. They funded it, and they've now punted it to the courts. Mm-hmm. How do you fight that battle if you get to be commander-in-chief? Explain the process in which you would be able to do that.
Look, the only way to fight that battle, I believe, is with a strong conservative president. Congressional leadership, they're simply not going to lead. But with a strong conservative president, it's an altogether different world. For one thing, the way Obama has abused his power, the tool he has used most often is executive authority. He's abused his constitutional power. The silver lining of that is everything done with executive power can be undone with executive power. That's why I pledged on day one to rescind every single illegal and unconstitutional executive action done by Barack Obama. It's why I pledged to direct the Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood and prosecute any criminal violation. It's why I pledged to end the persecution of religious liberty in the federal government. It's why I pledged to direct the Department of Education to end Common Core. A strong, vigorous executive can undo the damage of the Obama administration. But secondly, when it comes to Congress, a president that is prepared to say to congressional leadership, If you send me a bill that is filled with corporate welfare, that's filled with pork, that's filled with cronyism, I will veto it. That's what Reagan did, and it changed the entire direction of this country. That's exactly what I'm committed to doing as well.
Let's talk about the trajectory of the race. When you were recently on my radio show, you said, no, Iowa's not a must-win for the Cruz campaign, for your campaign. Talk about the path for the primary, through the primary, and tell me in the general election, what states do you believe a Ted Cruz candidacy could put in play against either Hillary or Bernie or maybe Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden? I don't know if Hillary in fact got indicted.
Well, we'll start with the primary where you asked. I think we are all in each of the first 4 states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada. We've got amazing teams on the ground in each of the first 4 states. What we're seeing is conservatives coming together behind our campaign, and we're seeing the establishment coming together behind Donald Trump's campaign. I like those odds. There are more conservatives than there are the establishment. I believe we're well positioned to do really well in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada, and then 10 days after South Carolina is Super Tuesday, the SEC states, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas. I think Super Tuesday is going to be an amazing day for our campaign, where conservatives say, we don't want someone who views the job of president as let's expand the role of Washington, let's cut more deals with Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, let's have more cronyism and bailouts. And you know, we're seeing real distinctions on the issues. So, for example, Donald Trump enthusiastically supported the TARP bailout of big banks. I opposed it. He enthusiastically supported Barack Obama's stimulus plan. He thought it should have been bigger. I think it was a disaster and a waste of money. Actually, Donald not only supported both of those, but he argued that Obamacare should be expanded to make it socialized medicine for everyone. Actually, Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have basically the same health care plan. I disagree. As president, I will sign legislation. We will repeal every word of Obamacare. So there's a sharp policy distinction, and I think in the primary, Republican voters want a conservative. They don't want a deal maker who has written checks and supported Hillary Clinton and Mitch McConnell and John Boehner and Chuck Schumer. They want instead a principled Reagan conservative.
Maybe Donald Trump took the biggest shot at you today. He actually compared you to Hillary Clinton. I want to ask you about that. And you had 2 people come out, one against you and one for Donald Trump. Governor Palin's endorsement. She had endorsed you for the Senate. And Governor Branstad and his comments saying anybody pretty much but Ted Cruz. Your reaction to all those comments?
Oh, listen, Sarah Palin, I love Sarah Palin. I wouldn't be in the Senate without her support. She's made her decision for 2016. That's her prerogative. Regardless of that decision, I will remain a big, big fan of Sarah Palin's. And I do think the decision of who is the consistent conservative, who's the genuine conservative, that's a decision that's going to be made by the men and women of Iowa, by the men and women of New Hampshire and South Carolina and the states that are voting. As for Governor Branstad, you know, it's actually interesting. That is an example of the establishment getting behind Donald Trump, of the Washington cartel getting behind Donald Trump. And in fact, the governor's explanation for why is he wants a leader like Donald Trump who will continue the mandates, the ethanol mandate, and in fact expand it. You know, my view is we should have no mandates at all, no subsidies, no Washington picking winners and losers, no cronyism, but rather a level playing field. That's why my tax plan is a simple flat tax, 10% for everybody, no mandates, no subsidies for oil and gas, no subsidies for ethanol, for wind, for solar, for anybody else. Washington is not in the influence-playing business. We bring power back to the people. I think that's what the Republican voters are looking for. Who is the consistent conservative? Who's the genuine conservative? That's a decision that's going to be made by the men and women of Iowa, by the men and women of New Hampshire and South Carolina and the states that are voting. As for Governor Branstad, you know, it's actually interesting. That is an example of the establishment getting behind Donald Trump, of the Washington cartel getting behind Donald Trump. And in fact, the governor's explanation for why is he wants a leader like Donald Trump who will continue the mandates, the ethanol mandate, and in fact expand it. You know, my view is we should have no mandates at all, no subsidies, no Washington picking winners and losers, no cronyism, but rather a level playing field. That's why my tax plan is a simple flat tax, 10% for everybody, no mandates, no subsidies for oil and gas, no subsidies for ethanol, for wind, for solar, for anybody else. Washington is not in the influence-playing business. We bring power back to the people. I think that's what the Republican voters are looking for.